recording has stopped. Okay. And the nice thing about this is that, one, it gets you thinking about creativity, and two, how we can get started with young learners. So welcome to this session. And as you can see here, I want you to turn the light on. I want us to be inspired with some ideas about creative writing. But before we start with the writing part, I'm just going to briefly tell you what's in the session. Oh, well, this isn't applying to us actually, so I'll move on. What is creativity? We all have our own idea on what creativity means. So that's an important thought for us to hold on to. How do we start the process? Again, if we feel creativity is in one way, how are we going to get it started if that's the only way we think it will work? And also, what do children need? When we think about writing, if we don't have the writing skills in place, how can we get them to write? So it's a bit like the circle of infinity. Children can have great ideas in their mother tongue, but they can't put them into English. And they may have great ideas in English, but they can't put them into writing because they don't have the skills yet. But what we need to do is try and take that. Yes, you might not be able to write, but we're going to get you writing in a way that you can remember how to put it all together once we get the writing in place. And do we have a creative curriculum? That's another thing, is we talk a lot about creativity, and sometimes within the curriculum we have our creative half hour where the children are invited to maybe do one or two things like drawing. Is that enough? Is that enough? Is it all about drawing? And we'll look at some ideas and activities, and always with my ideas how to evaluate. So creativity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we have any, I want you to just use the chat box to just answer this. What does creativity mean to you? And maybe Shweta can read out some answers to that. So I've got two questions. What does creativity mean to you? And what subjects do you think promote creativity? So let's have a look. We've got anyone answering this question? Let's see, we're getting some answers in. A spark of an idea, that's great. Anyone else want to write in what they think creativity means to them? So I'll just have a quick look. Your own ideas, brainstorming, yes. Anyone else want to add? Inner talent, yeah. Speaking from the heart, imagination, different view on a topic, thinking out of the box. Yes, I love that. Get rid of the box, take the box away. And also, what subjects? All subjects can be used. Of course, all subjects can be used for creativity. So it's a good start that we have an idea. And I want you to remember some of your answers to this. Own thinking, yeah. As we move on, because we'll go back to our own ideas of creativity as we move on. So we all have a different idea of what we think creativity is to us personally, and that's what makes us individual. And I love this illustration because what it does go is to show how we're always looking at the academic side of what children need, but we also need to let it cross over to the creative side. And creativity is intelligence having fun. Think of all the brilliant ideas that have come out of people using their thoughts in a creative way. And this is what we're looking more on now. Big companies like Google and Microsoft all like to have creative, energetic minds working on particular concepts. We aim for academia, we aim for academic excellence, but without that spark of creativity, it's very difficult for people. I'm just reading some of the comments that are absolutely brilliant. So have a look at these, images, and this is a quick little warm-up. And can anyone tell me what this is? Do they know the artist? Can you think of this one? It's not a test. If you know it, it's great. Can anyone think of this? Or where it is, more importantly, do you know where it is? So we have the spark of life here. This is a brilliant picture in the Sistine, painted in the Sistine Chapel. But do you know what? It's telling a story. It's an image that is telling a story. And this is in a church. So just bear with me while I'm explaining how important images are in being able to put a story together. This is Leonardo da Vinci in the Sistine Chapel. And you may recognize this. Where do we think this is? Do any of you know where this is? There's a big clue in the back here. And this is representing Egypt. Yes, it's Egypt. And the Sphinx is telling us a story. It's a way, because people didn't have words to write down. They didn't have a system of using a code to write down. And in fact, the Egyptians started that code. But the ordinary people, so they did it visually. Is this artistic? Would you agree? Is this a form of art? Yes or no? And if anyone would like to write in the chat box, do you think that this girl doing a bodily, kinesthetic, multisensory kind of meaning, it's a form of art? And some of you may know this here, gymnastics. Gymnastics is a bodily expression of creativity. And here, this is a beautiful Indian mural that is in Cambodia in the Angkor Wat, a beautiful story. So I'm showing you these because they are representations of somebody's story, but they can't write it. So they're using visual. Now, why I'm explaining this to you will become very clear as we move on with the session. Using visuals to tell the story. So just very quickly, again, I want you to have a look at these and tell me what you see. You can unmute yourself. What do you see when you first see these? Here, what do you see in this one? Is it evident?
A girl.
A girl, yeah, and that's a girl, yeah. Some people will see the butterfly and the flowers, and you've seen the girl. So the mind is accommodating it. This one?
The flower is the mouth.
I can see it. Like a man also, a girl, even a couch, a girl sitting on a couch, dining table, everything.
Yeah. So this again is another type of kind of creativity, but it's playing with our mind. And depending on how you look at it, if you're more right-minded or left-minded, you will see the girl or you'll see the man. And this one, again,
an old man.
Village scene or a face of a man.
An old man.
In
An old
the
man.
house window eyes.
It's very clever, isn't it? How they do it. There's a boy and a sheep and it looks like a man. So again, why am I asking this? Because creativity is different for all of us. Some of you immediately saw the man and some of you immediately saw the woman. And so what I am showing you is that we all might be hearing or seeing the same thing sometimes, but it can mean something different to us. So that's something, again, I want you to remember as we move on. Now, you saw this one before, and you know I love this image, and I pop it up in all of my sessions. So the last time I mentioned about how we need the left and the right-hand side to work together, but also what they does promote is the creativity in different areas of our learning. If we are musical, if we are artistic, if we are creative with language, mathematical, and even if you look at I put in here foods, so you can be creative with foods. But what you will remember from my last session with you with this slide is that the left and the right side depend on each other quite a lot. And some of them are to maximize kind of fulfillment, to minimize. So some of us are more mathematical, some of us are good with music, some people may not feel they're very creative with using art, I'd say art, but everything's artistic in a way. So this we discover as we move on. And it's the same for children. They may not all be the same way creative that we are, that we want them to be when they're small. So that's something we've got to think about. We have to give a range of activity. And as you can see here, this wonderful expression that creativity involves breaking out of expected patterns in order to look at things in a different way. And I'm asking you this about the curriculum. when we look at the curriculum and what needs to be done, think of other ways that it can be done to appeal to the different styles of learning. Because one of you may see the chair, the other one might see the spaces around it. And it's as simple as that. We all have a different way of looking at things. And believe it or not, so do children. As they are developing that left and that right side, their orientation may change. Now, how does this work with writing? Writing is a particular skill. But as we are getting children towards that writing skill, which usually doesn't fall in place till they're about 6 or 7, really, writing skills. We want to layer the structure. And that's what I need to talk to you about today, about how we layer the structure. So I'm going to get you to think again and join in. Think of a creative person you know or have seen or have heard about. It can be in the past, the present, or the future. It could be a famous singer. It can be your neighbor. It can be your husband. It can be your child. And put it in the chat box. Think of someone you believe to be creative to you. So please put them in your chat box. Somebody who, a villager, okay, my son, that's great that you can see that with your son. You've got my son, okay. We're saying my niece, my son, great. And while you're writing all of this, what person in your mind, what makes them creative to you? Many of you have put family member, myself, great. Why do you feel you're creative? What is it that you think you bring? Are you creative with words? Are you creative with what you can do in your home? Are you creative in school? What creativity do you have? Some people are creative with words, making them, so we have a lot of people. I just want you to think about what makes you feel creative. And nature observations, great. Nature observations are good. We can be very creative in our observations. So far, I've asked you to think about, creative with words. I've asked you to think about creativity. I've asked you to think about how pictures can be a way, or even movement or food, anything, a way we create. Creating stories, look at that. So there you go. A lot of you recognize creativity. So that's good that we've got that out the way. But one thing that you can see with the activity I've asked you to do is that we all have a different idea about creativity. But why are we trying to teach children in the same way? And that is a big question. We all think we have to be creative in a prescribed way and that it works. And what we can be doing is missing that opportunity of getting a child to be hugely creative, which can later on go into creative writing. So what I've got some resources that I'm going to be sending to Shweta after, and this is one of them. And this is just my brief overview of how creativity, I'm not going to read out everything, but how creativity crosses so many lines in our curriculum. And as you can see, we have outcomes, we also have concepts, and we also have what we are aiming for. And as you can see, there's a lot here: knowledge and understanding of the world. We can be creative, personal, social, and emotional development. It's also creative with our empathy and our different areas. So you might find this handy, and I will send it on afterwards. So my question is, and this is a beautiful illustration to show, is that do we have creativity? Do we hold the key to creativity in our hands? I think we do with young learners. And many of you are experienced educators, and you can tell by asking the right question or providing the right activity really gets children motivated. So this is a big question for us. What do you think limits opportunities for creativity for children. Now, maybe you could just quickly answer this. I'm asking you to interact a lot today because it's really interesting to hear your answers. And limits the opportunities for children. Some of the levels, yeah, we have various levels. With the young children, we have to appreciate that birthdays in January and birthdays in December means that there's a big divide in the children when they're very young. Also, the curriculum can require us to have so many tests and performance, yeah, strict, not giving instructions what to do. Yeah, children need to be clear on what we want them to do, using a range of methods. And of course, writing is a life skill, which depends on us understanding codes. And when we say codes, I'm talking about letter symbols that help organize our language. And as I mentioned earlier, this is something, not comfortable with language, yeah. And this is something that makes it difficult when we are teaching children as English as a second language. It's going to be slower getting the creativity in writing in that side than in their mother tongue. So I'm looking at skills that you can use that are transposable. And also another good thing is to work with the teacher of Hindi or whatever the language is to see what's happening with the same children from one creativity. So creative writing gives us all the ingredients that children will use for their future writing, a beginning and a middle and an end. And this recipe is in every piece of writing we do. When we write an email, when we write for an exam, when children are writing stories, but also their personal narrative will begin to have a beginning and a middle and an end. But the one thing for children is that the creative writing process starts with mark making, where children need to start putting what they're learning through perhaps synthetic phonics or whatever method you are using to get children to understand that a symbol has a sound. They need to start playing with that. And we often don't have enough time in our curriculum for this. We rush through it. We're tracing. We're going to be starting to trace letters. They also need the freedom to move that arm around, to develop the muscles, the gross muscles, along with the gross and fine motor skills. Also, once they start learning the code, practicing it and getting it in some form so that they are segmenting and blending and beginning to read and write. It's a connected skill. What we write, we read. And also, because of the pandemic, we've missed out on this a lot. And you as parents or educators, you probably have missed this, where children are talking and their imagination is, what are you making? I'm making a fantastic cake. What's in your cake? Oh, blah, blah, blah. They are using creative knowledge, creative cognitiveness in their play. It's mud, but to them, they are creating the best cake in the world and they're talking about it. That imagination will go into writing when children move on. So very briefly, this is a very quick overview of how writing starts. Very brief, condensed one. To activate knowledge. Now, the issue is that small children don't have a great knowledge well to go into. Their knowledge of life experiences, what they do at home, maybe their routines. And this is why a lot of early years topics are safe themes like my home, the jobs, pets, things that children can relate to. So the writing process will start with activating children's knowledge. And this goes in with writing here. They're starting to copy as they understand the code. So you're probably very familiar with that. And what we like to do is use stories to generate conversation, generate ideas, and listen for vocabulary. We then move on where we take that information and hopefully children are beginning to make an effort to show their comprehension. Their comprehension are visual representations of what they can hear and what they understand. And to some extent, you are guiding this. You are giving them specific tasks. If you didn't, they'd be out doing mark making all day, and you need to show what they're learning. So this is what we have right at the beginning. And then as we moved into primary, we have more of this where children are becoming comfortable about expanding on an idea. You can give them a title, you can give them an image, you can talk through a possible story, and they're ready to go. And it's a bit more controlled. You are probably asking them to write using punctuation. Maybe they're using high frequency words, some of the spellings that they know. So you're looking for evidence. And here we're moving on to upper primary and into secondary. Also, although this is a very quick view, as you can see, there's quite a lot in there. And to get to these points, we have a lot of time to work through these, and children have to go through mistakes and errors and learn and work together. And also, as educators, we have to think, what am I planning for? Oral language, mother tongue, and in English, we want them to develop a rich language because what I say, I can write, and what I write, I can read. So this is usually faster with the one language, not in the other. Vocabulary acquisition. Many of you probably know how hard this is as teachers to keep saying vocabulary over and over and over again. So children are learning it. They also need a lot of visual cues, and it takes time. So the mother tongue language is far quicker than in second language. We need to give this some time, but with a busy curriculum and being online, this has not been easy. Children have better digital literacy than they have working with a pen and paper. Restory, the telling of the story, and I call it rebuilding the story, and you'll find that this is really an important part where we get a story and we can retell it and get the process, get the scaffolding in place for creative writing. Things like storyboarding, another way that children are beginning to write. You notice I'm doing this, they're writing. Just like where we saw the Sphinx and we saw the Sistine Chapel, all those beautiful images, there's a story there. There's a story. And using props and memory triggers, evaluation and assessment. So there's a lot that we need to plan for. So I'm going to start with a story. And as you know, stories are the most passive way for children to listen to a story. When we read a story out, we possibly change the language to suit the level of the child and the level of English they had. It would be really, really ambitious for us to read a story word for word, thinking how difficult it is how difficult it is for children to be able to understand every single word. I've just noticed in the chat box, it said how to differentiate between guided writing and controlled writing. Right, guided writing is when all the children are working towards a shared goal. So if you're looking for comprehension, you're looking for understanding of what they're doing. And controlled writing is where they're writing for a specific purpose. So the controlled writing may be that you wish to see evidence of their grammar skills. You wish to see evidence of them using a particular list of vocabulary that they've had to learn. Perhaps if they had done a topic on vegetables and fruits, you are trying to, in the controlled writing, you could say to them, I want you to talk about making a meal, where you're seeing evidence of what they know. And guided is where you're more helping the process along, as it says. You're giving them tips on how to start, how to get going, what they should put in. So there is some difference between that. And it also depends on their age, on how much you can ask. Now, thing here is quite important, is children's interpretation. This is the beginning of their creativity. Just like I asked you, your interpretation of what creativity means. If we start with a story, because children don't have a big life experience to fall back on, we have lots of experience. Child's interpretation will give you that spark, the scaffolding of the writing experience. So I'm going to stop talking for a second, and I want you to listen to this little girl. Tell me, what do you hear? Not so much what you hear from the story, but listen to her language as she is speaking. Okay, I won't play it all. We'll get to about halfway, but have a listen.
Once upon a time, there is a huge cave, and in the cave, there was bears that had intelligent eyes, and but they were about to have a baby. But the baby was gone. She was lost, and she was eaten by a dragon. And then she rolled back to her mommy. But the mommy was gone. She got eaten by a dragon too. And then Daddy Bear got eaten, and Baby Bear. They were all eaten up by a dragon. And then they heard a monster come towards them, but they couldn't see him because they were in the dragon's body. And then
Okay, I'm going to stop. Isn't that just great? Now tell me, what did you hear while she was speaking? What could you hear? Please, if you want to unmute yourself and join in, tell me, what could
A
you?
story about a dragon who
Yes.
ate.
Yeah,
The
carry
story
on.
about the bears,
Yeah.
dragon ate them all.
Yeah. Did you think there was something like the three bears in there? We had Mummy Bear and Baby Bear. Did you pick up on that? There was the three bears.
Yes.
Bears.
We could
bear.
hear
Yes,
it.
there were 3 bears and monster
Yeah.
also in the last.
Yeah. And what about the language? She was making errors, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is normal and this is great. But what we could hear, and I love this, is that we could hear she was using some of the ideas from the stories she'd heard to create her own story. And you could see she was making it up as she was going along. The grammar wasn't correct, no, but she was going and she was going and she was getting quite excited about it. And this is why using stories to try and get language learning going is really important. As you can see here, my roadmap, we have the beginning and the middle and the end. And how do we support children's learning is telling and retelling of stories that provide a framework, because sometimes it's really easy to do the beginning and the middle and the end can be a little bit more difficult. And using stories that can be part of your class. You may have stories embedded into your class book. How can you expand on them? How can you use that to support you with your creative writing? And also giving ideas and concepts for opportunities of participation. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, how we get children doing this, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Because with young children, they normally can't think of things ending because they haven't got the experience for it, and how we can use visual cues to support our story making. So again, I'm giving you a very brief overview of the cycle that we are aiming for. You telling the story, the children are participating. Every time you turn a page, if it's a story they've heard 3 or 4, what's going to happen next? What happened before? What happens now? What happens next? They're beginning to learn about tenses, time concepts, Children don't think in time concepts because they don't know them very well. You are retelling the story in a modified way. We're asking children who, what, why, where. We're engaging them. They are talking to each other and correcting each other. And then they re-modify the story and then write their own story. So as you can tell, it's a really helpful process. And I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint, and I think I have the video of the Very Hungry Caterpillar, because to show you how this works, I needed a book, I needed something to give you an example. So I took a very basic story. And this is very basic because each sentence within the Very Hungry Caterpillar is usually about one line. And you may think, well, that's not enough vocabulary. But if you're not secure with English, or if you don't want to go into too much detail, having one line in the book means you can add or you can keep to what is there. If you just want to read the one line, that's perfect. If you want to add to it, you have the perfect way of starting with a book that doesn't have too much language in it. And I think I'm going to send you, you can have the somebody reading this and also the video story. And the video story is a really good thing to pre-send to children because they can look at it as many times as they need to. They can absorb the sequence. They can begin to have the beginning and the middle and the end. And also it means they are ready. They are ready to start creative writing. So let's see if I want to show, yeah. So this is I'm going to put this, this is just a little bit of showing you what the video is like. But the one thing is children are beginning to see the days of the week. So they are following a sequence. They have the story.
He started to look for some.
However, if your children do not have great English skills, look what you can do. You can use this as a visual to support language by saying, what can you see? I can see a caterpillar. I can see an egg. You can do your own script. You can do your own dialogue to fit the children's level, but they are making connections with what they see and what they hear. You could even have it on something like this, where you can have the story coming up in very simple prompts underneath. What can you see? I can see a caterpillar. So we're starting the literacy process where they're listening and making connections. And again, it's a really great way for children to have this before we move on to something like this. Now, I'm going to send Shweta this, which is the PDF, which is a PowerPoint. Now, the good thing about a PowerPoint is that you can focus on one part at a time. And I can use this for vocabulary exploration, for understanding that children are understanding the story. And I can also take away that text and make it into something easy. I want children to understand the sequence, understand the story, because when I move on to beginning my creative writing, and the children are going to start creative writing with this story. It's a great story because there's many concepts. So you have this PowerPoint, which I'm sure will not be a problem to share with you. But I'm going to ask you now to think, look at this. This is a very simple activity that we can do online to activate children's knowledge to start the writing process. Now, if you want to open up your audio and tell me, what else could I be doing besides the story? Look at this simple game where I just roll the dice and the children have to name things. How else could I use this for cross-curricular if you want to join in? How else could we use this?
We can use
Number recognition, fruits recognition.
Yeah, anyone else? Someone was starting there. Anyone else?
Color.
Maybe days of
Colours?
the week. Days of the week. It can be done
Days
for
of the week?
show
The
and tell
process
also.
of caterpillar, how it from
how it grows, how the caterpillar grows.
Making a
Course,
pattern,
evolution.
Life
Yeah.
cycle, life cycle.
making a
cycle
pattern.
caterpillar.
Yeah.
We can make a pattern also with the objects there.
Yeah, you can make a pattern. So yes, you can see what.
Can talk about healthy food.
We
Yeah.
can learn alphabet C.
Yeah, some fabulous ideas coming through. And what are we doing? We are activating children's knowledge. Remember when I showed you the progress of writing? The most important, could you imagine if somebody just gave you a piece of paper and said, write about, I don't know, write about the effects of the pandemic during 2020. And you're like, what? I don't know enough about that. But if we say, write about your favorite food, it's something you know about, you could do really easily. So activating children's knowledge is one thing. And as you mentioned, they probably have colors. They could probably name the fruits. We could even say, okay, show me three. Show me five. What comes before 4? 3. What comes after 5? So they're learning all these concepts. You're activating. So children are thinking, yeah, I know so much. I know these fruits. I know my numbers up to 5. I know about a caterpillar going to a beautiful butterfly. I can do a butterfly. I can name the colors of the butterfly. So can you see how we are activating using visual cues? And also something like this, children can, finger track or understand the sequence. So this is a really good way to get started, because then when you read out the original story, and this story, I can send you the download from Sparklebox. This is an adaptation from Sparklebox where they've got the story as blank PDFs or JPEGs. It depends how you convert it. And you have this. Now, just imagine you can adapt it, as I mentioned earlier, adapt it to the children, because these simple grammar structures are what you're going to see when children start writing. They're going to use what they've heard and what you have introduced to them. You may start as a copywriting, that I can see the moon, and you may say, okay, let's put an adjective in there. You think of something, of a way of describing. I can see a big moon. I can see a white moon. White is a difficult word. I can see a round moon. You may offer suggestions so that children can put these in. It won't come automatically to them. But just imagine if you said, right, children, we're going to use these images. You can use my sentence, and I'm going to give you some words that you can add. You're starting the creative process. They are electing what they want to put. And as you can see, simple additions. You read the original story, and then you can amend it to what your children can do. Now, this is a very simple idea, as you can see here. Now, here it's done with green paper, but if your children are still at home, there's no reason why they can't have a piece of card from a cereal box and put Post-its. The Post-its can be any colors. They don't have to be green. Can you see how layering the Post-its? But look what we've got here. The children can draw the sequence. It's a good way for you to evaluate whether they remember the sequence. And if it's in a Post-it, if it's not in the right sequence, they can change it around. But also, they are retelling the story orally. Once upon a time, there was a caterpillar, and the caterpillar ate apple, and then they had 2 bananas. Is that a banana? No, think again. 2 pears. Can you see how the children are constructing a creative timeline? They are creating the story in a way. And if they could write the vegetables and fruits and things, how great would that be? Even if you decided to create your own sequence of vegetables or fruits that fit in with your class book, children are beginning the creative progress. And even something as simple as this, where you could be given them a dictated drawing for comprehension. I want a purple body. I want a yellow face. I want orange foot, and then the children have to say it back. Or maybe they can choose the feet in their own color. It's a creative process. And the same with this one. Why not start writing? An apple, a pear, a plum. Look at this, an apple. And you're passively teaching grammar, but children are remembering the process and being creative with it. The same with this, following what we did with the PDFs. Very simple. Now, we may not have the luxury of being able to do something like this, but certainly building the creative foundation to support our storytelling can be as simple as this: pasta necklace. All right, this is quite an extravagant one if you don't have hoops, but I like the idea that these are just it's a cup that's been put in paint. And if children don't have paint at home, they can use a cup and draw around it in different colors and then talk about it. My caterpillar has, we're talking about plural, a red ring, a yellow ring, a blue ring, creative. And look at this, paper plates. These are just basic ideas. But even again, going back to our post-its, how children can have post-its with their own drawings on, be their own authors. Now, we are now moving on to the writing part, and it's not writing as you know it. The teacher here on this image has put a storyline. You can see the child has got a really nice pointer, and the pointer is really helpful, but they can use their finger. And the visual line is helping children to remember the story. Very important, because the beginning and the middle and the end, we have to remember this narrative. So that's quite a nice one for in class. This is also another great way for you to demonstrate what you want children to do. They don't know enough letters to start writing words, but you want them to start creative writing. So this is another way of you modeling creative writing. I'm asking you to stand back and look at writing in a different way. Here, you have got the start and the end, and you have done a visualization of the story for the child. And you'll see an interpretation of that in a minute. Here, children organizing. This is more of a pair share, collaborative task, where the children, as you can see here, have a story map. This is what we call these, a story map. They're organizing the props. Now, can you imagine when these children have the skills, being able to go back to that story map and use the props and start the writing process? It's going to be a lot easier. And this is storyboarding. It can be done with children at home with an A4 paper that's been folded. And in the squares, they can easily just draw their little caterpillar and start storyboarding using post-its. You see. Now, the good thing about doing something like this, which is cheap and cheerful, the children are mark making their interpretation. But if the sequence is wrong, or they don't like what they've put, it's a post-it, so they can move it around. Again, cheap, easy resources to start the process. Now, once we get back into classes, you may have very physical children, and there are children who really need to move around. And also, one way we can do that, also getting the story process in action, is having prompts for children to be able to jump and also explain what they want to do. It has to be modeled a little bit, and it has to be done that children realize you all can't start jumping at the same time. So I used to walk through the register, work through the register, but they used the visual cues. I'm on a leaf, it's a caterpillar, I'm really hungry, and I got basic vocabulary, but the child was using the whole kinesthetic body movement to try and retell the story and add their own parts. And there are more additions to this as children get older. There's some beautiful ones that have been done by a trainer we know called Melly in Bulgaria, and it's all about a kinesthetic approach to writing. So it might be nice if I could get her to talk to you as well. Now, this is a nice little video, which I won't play all of it, but I will send to you. And it goes through all the stages of
Scribbling.
writing.
The child creates marks or scribbles that they intend to be
Now,
writing.
these are valuable little
Wavy
videos
scribbles
to
are
have,
lucky and
not so much for you, but for parents. And if you're having to have a parent session, that they understand that it's okay for children to go through these stages. Because a lot of parents are often shocked that their 4-year-old still wants to scribble. Why aren't they writing? You know, they're reading. Why aren't they writing? And it often helps to show that children get there, but it can take a little bit longer. So I'm going to send you this. So it might be some help if you are talking to parents and they can understand. And also not to worry if children have mirror writing or giant writing. This is a normal phase that children go through as they get to the mastery level. So I'm hoping that this will be a little bit of help for you. So I'm just bringing you back now to where we are. We're about here. We're about here now, where children are taking the information. And we are not quite with generating ideas, but what we are doing is they've been doing a lot of copying, and the copying has been letter shapes, letter strings, maybe some small blends. And the guided writing is us helping them come to some kind of arrangement in how they can show us the information that they know. And the information that they know, they are adding their own personality to it, or working together to get ideas. Just like when kids start playing a game online and they get excited and they start doing things, we see that creativity coming through. So we're about here. We can't do any controlled writing because still the children don't have enough skills to exhibit what they know. So we're in this kind of area here, and there still will be a lot of copying where you model what you want them to start writing and asking them to extend it a little bit. So remember that little photo I showed you before of the start and the end and the caterpillar? Well, this is one child's interpretation of that. As you can see, it's not quite as clear, but the child knows what this means. The child understands that this is where the story starts and this is where it ends. And she may be able to finger track and identify what's in here. She may have added some corn, and this squiggly thing could be a worm. That's the beginning of the creative process. And additionally, while we are asking children to write, they may need quite a lot of time and help to get this one sentence out. And you end up being a big detective as you're trying to identify. We have a tricky word, the, which is really good, but hopefully these are on display and they're copying them. Caterpillar. Look at that. Caterpillar. 8 leaves. Look at that. 8. So we have the interpretation. I wonder how long that took. And this is another thing, time. We don't usually have a lot of time in our literacy classes. And we also have this, the beginning of creative writing, where the child is using their visual cue. This is their visual prompt to start writing. And from this, how do you assess as a teacher? You could say, right, the child may have copied the date. The child, all right, but look, we've got a capital letter. That's good. We've got a tricky word. We have another one, is, brizik, but I really don't know, but we've got you can dip them. That makes sense. And I have a full stop. So I'd ask the child to read, see if they're finger tracking, see if they can decipher what they've put. Look at that. At least I have one coherent sentence at the end. I think that's because you can dip them. Very phonetical spelling, but the child is having a go. And it's the same with something like a drawing. Asking a child to do this before they come to class. You don't want to spend too much time on colouring in class because it's something that could be done beforehand. Bringing this in, having it ready for your online class if the child can write one sentence or extend a sentence, you know, my caterpillar is green and red, my caterpillar is big or small. They're starting the process. As children progress with their visual and sequencing skills, you may start to organize what you want them to do in sequences. Now, I'm giving you this based on the Very Hungry Caterpillar. You can apply it to anything. These strategies that I'm offering you can be for any type of activity or book you want to put them there. But the point is always try and get an opportunity for a visual cue to go along with the writing cue. And you may have seen this before, it's called mapping, where the children are mapping out the story. And what do you get from this? You can understand if the child has understood the basics of the story, because remember, we might be doing it in English. If it's in mother tongue, you should be getting a lot more information. They're writing. We may have little speech bubbles with key words we're writing. Using puppets, getting children to speak or act out their writing in a way. Using things like these, I love the fact that we can use wooden spoons to organize the sequence of a story. Here, we have the sequence of a story. I can't remember which story this is now, the Gruffalo, I think. We have the mouse and the river, and we have all the animals. This is how children organize their thought process before it goes onto paper. And could you imagine if children found or they saw a footprint, you took a footprint of sand in your house or flour, and you say, what is it? Getting the children to guess. What did they find? What was in my teacher's classroom? What was in my teacher's kitchen? Was it a monster? Was it a dinosaur? So we are mapping and using these to start with the process. And some of you may have seen this if you came to like a story sack session that I've done about how you can have these story lines, this story journey to get children. Now, why is a story journey, story mapping so important? It's incredibly important because trying to organize your thought is not easy. As an adult, we think in narratives. You wake up in the morning and you kind of know what you're doing in the middle of the day, and you kind of know what you're doing at the end of the day. You have a beginning and a middle and an end. Most children map their day around food, around their routine if they're back at school. But trying to come out of that, trying to put it down on paper is not easy. So if we have a visual planner, some of you may have your diary, you may use a visual timetable in class, you can organize what you want to do and how you want to do it. Should it be pictorial, can it be in words? When we start with small children, it's quite good that you are oralizing and the children are using a pictorial way to organize the thoughts. Because the big issue that we have to deal with is that we often have to justify our creativeness. We often have to have great creative moments in our class to justify using the resources we've been given or doing something that's in the class book. But are they seen as learning? I myself can remember having a lot of pressure that I'm on page 16 of the class book and it says we have to make a toilet roll monster. Right, everybody bring in toilet rolls, boom, 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 get it done as quickly as possible. I've done my creative bit. But what were we doing? We were just ticking the box because it was fitting the idea of the creative curriculum. But of course, we need to have our curriculum. But what I would say is try and look at how we can extend that. And look at this. This is creativity. This is children taking the knowledge that you have shared with them in class in their way. They are sharing their creativity, and it's a form of writing. There's a story behind every image, just like the Sphinx, just like the Sistine Chapel, just like that girl doing gymnastics. It's a story. Everything has a story behind it. These on the cardboard boxes have a story that need to be shared and told. So when we think about the beginning and the middle and the end, we are layering the foundation. Call it layering. And normally the beginning goes really well because we have a title. We may be able to think of characters. We may be able to think of the story. But usually using a story like the Three Little Pigs or anything that is familiar to your children is a great way to get started. How are you going to do it? It's really important for you to think of the process. How much time can you give yourself? How much can you acquire to get the children to do? And also, what do you want them to do? Because as you know, offering too many things can often not help because children are small, they need to have some guidance. But if you wanted to do the leaf book, if you wanted to do to sequence the post-its, make their own books, the thing is that you know the objective you want to get to. Don't just wing it. Don't say, we're going to start and hopefully we'll get to the end. Know exactly what you want your children to achieve. If it is sequencing the story and able to talk about it, that's great. Think of all the assessment you can do in that. And what activities the children are doing. Does it fit in with their ages and stages and curriculum? What does it tell you? You may be able to think, I have children who are just not demonstrating any knowledge of the stories I tell, or are not exhibiting any of the vocabulary I am sharing during our units online, or any of the phonics that we are doing. But think of the bigger picture and remember they're still very young in early years. And then we get to primary. If they're still not doing it, we need to be worried. So this is the layering. Stories and role play and drama, drawings, we're building up. And then we have emerging writing where children are having a go. And isn't that great? They really are enjoying the process and they're starting to get engaged with what they do. You are organizing writing for them. And then additionally, they are developing the skills and strategy, which means that they are achieving the results that we hopefully are guiding them to. So I'm just checking. Yeah, it's a full-time thing. And as you can see, the layers are amazing that we have. So writing skills are emerging. And I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself and have a look. What can you see on this sentence? Any observation?
Mouse, cat, dog, but few of the alphabets are like flipped.
Yes, that's fantastic. Yeah, and another thing is you'll find that she's got the right sequence. Now, mouse is a super difficult word, isn't it? Mouse is a difficult word, so that may have been copied. Mousy, mouse, but you're quite correct. We have reversal and we also have big letters in the middle. So if I was evaluating this writing, I would say, okay, I will keep an eye on how often she's mixing up capital letters and small letters. Is there finger spacing? Do you see any spacing there? No, not at all. And we have some reversal. So I'd be watching that. Now tell me, open yourself up on the mic. What do you think about this piece of writing? What would come to you if you saw this piece of writing from Ingrid? If anyone would like to share. It's a bit confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit confusing.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. What we would worry about, I imagine, if you saw this, some of you would probably think, is this child trying to write?
My trip. He must
First
be trying
word
to
is
like
my
my trip.
Yeah. Sorry, someone was saying trip. If you'd like to say again. My trip. My trip. But as you can see here, you've got like my trip. But we're missing finger spacing. We're missing buying a ticket. Yeah. And as you can see, my trip. It's very difficult. We'll be wondering if we need to work on some more skills here. Can you see how it's creative? It's free writing. They use it, but we're also identifying that we need to do a little bit more here. And I'm not going to read all of this one out, but I do like this one. This one, you can hear the translating. If I read from here, some friends, okay, they can't hear the D. They can't. Slept outside. Some friends slept inside. They heard flapping of wings. It was birds. They went back to sleep. Now, if you had a 4 or 5-year-old who wrote that, how would you feel? Would you be happy or would you be worried? Anyone like to share?
Both.
Yes. Who's speaking? Who's this one? Who says both? Who said both? Yes, and I think it's true. It would be both. You'd be absolutely delighted that they're trying because we've got some high frequency words, but you'd be a bit worried that they're missing some fundamental stuff there. You know, some of it is great. It's absolutely great, but also what we're recognizing is the importance of repetition of phonic sounds, but also how creativity needs to come out. So yeah, Saskia, you're quite right there. I like that, both. Both. And normally we can get started with simple things like lists. You know, just writing lists, writing names is a good way for children to practice, you know, to do their writing. So when we think about putting it all together, we often think that writing is just, there you go, boom, off you go, write a story. But we have to create interest. We have to grab children's attention. Look at all these things they have to think about when they're getting the ideas together. That is quite difficult. It's like if I said to you, we're going to write a novel. It's like, yeah, great idea. Okay, what are we going to write about? I don't know. And we start going through this process of narrowing down what we got to do. So we're presenting ideas, but also we have this on the other side. So for us with young learners, it's this constant balance. When children move up to primary, at least, hopefully, they have some knowledge of writing in process. But when we are working with very, very young learners, it's exceptionally hard because we're constantly balancing what personal narratives, stories, talking and writing. Can you imagine all of this all the time with everything we do? Is pretty hard. So I love this one because what it does is show you the process that we often forget about. When we want the story, we say, think about who's going to be in your story. Have you got somebody in your mind? Yep, I've got Pepe the Duck. All right, so we've got Pepe the Duck. Now, we've got Pepe, but what else do we have to think about? The name of his friends, the other people in the story. What do they look like? How do they feel? There's an awful lot to think about. So it's not just thinking about Pepe the Duck and what he looks like. It's about the people who are going to be in my story as well. I have to think about them, how they look, how they feel, and why are they in my story? I then have to think about the language I'm going to use. My story has to be a little exciting. I have to use descriptive words. I have to make it imagine. I have to be creative. But if I've got English as a second language, I may not know these words in English, but I know them in my own mother tongue. So that's another problem I have to think about. And then we also think of story starters. How do I get started? And how do I keep going? Oh, sorry, I can see I've put that in Spanish. How do I keep going? So often, these are the things that we don't think about before a children starts. Now, it's really good to use the story hand, and you can use these 5 points for any kind of story, and you can reduce it to 3. That children, just like their hand for vowels, just like their hands for counting, you can say, these are the things you need. You can decide what you want, whether they have to think of the people, think of the setting, think of the problems. You can have all of these in your story. The story hand. There's a lot of visuals on Google. And also what you have to think about is how we gently extend out and extend out. As you can see here, there's such a lot to think about. But listening to stories will help children understand the idea. Also, free writing prompts. I'm not saying that you start children using all of this, but what we can do is introduce the idea of, I want you to write from here to here. And you can use a green dot and a red dot. where children can go through with you what they can see, what they can make observations about, and you are scribing. You can easily be scribing on the screen and how they can use this. And also I can send you these prompts. And before we move on too much, this is one for more primary. If you have got primary children and you want them to write, think about how you can prompt them on the side. And this can be done with either clip arts, but remember to keep putting in what you can hear and what you can see and what you can taste, because children work very much on the senses. And here I've got, where am I? Am I hungry? What can I wear? What can I see? But this is for slightly older children, but you can help them think about it and organizing. This is moving on from story starters. And before, I don't want to keep you for too long because I keep talking, but another great way to get started is having this picture. Now, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves. We're going to have a little bit of interaction. Look at this. If only I was bigger, thought the chick. What story could we get from this? Anyone like to contribute? I invite you all to come up with an idea. We have a tiny chick and a pair of boots. What could be our story if this was our title? It's a way of you thinking about how we could start with the title and then think of a story. Would anyone like to join in? I think we've got a tiny chick.
Self-worth of the tiny chick. Self-worth.
Yeah, we can have that. Yeah. And you can imagine how we could say, if I said to you, how is the chick feeling? Anyone like to answer? How is the chick feeling? Sad. Lost. Yeah. And why is he so close to this person? Who could this person be?
She's trying to compare. She's trying to compare with human beings.
Okay. Where do you think they are? Where are they?
In the garden.
Yeah, or open area.
Okay. Or on the farm. Okay. And
So this chick is very sad because he is finding his mother.
exactly.
And he's finding his mother. He is looking here and there and trying to find. And suddenly he saw two legs, two shoes. And he tried to ask, where is my mommy? Where is my mommy? But no answer. Then he continued his journey and tried to explore the things.
Oh, that's great.
And at last.
And can you see you have built a story around a photo. Can you imagine how excited children could get with this? And I know they're very limited, but by you asking, where are they? How does he feel? What do you think he wants? You are building that story, and that story can be transposed into a drawing, which could then have some minimal writing. I mean, you're great. You're absolutely great at this.
So we can use WH words, like give them prompts using WH words so that they can create story.
Yeah, and I have to say that this has been one of my most successful things online, that I have one image and the children like this. I've used this one and it's like, oh, he's so sad. Isn't he small? Where do you think he is? He's in a farm. Who do you think this is? That's the farmer. And somebody was saying, no, it's the little girl who lives on the farm. Oh, no, it's a garden. Okay. How do you think he's feeling? He's feeling hungry. He's feeling sad. So that was my starter. And then the next class we went on and the children remembered exactly what they had. And I was scribing on here. I was starting the story. The power of being able to say to me, this is, the chick is sad. The chick is sad. Where is it? He is in the farm. He is in the farm. Why is he sad? He has lost his mother. So we had about 6 or 7 lines. That was our story. And then we went back to it again and extended. The yellow chick was sad. He was in a big garden, or he was in a small farm. Can you see? We started building our story through one photo. It's an amazing process, and it's called layering the information. but it can't be done in one class. This was spread over several classes, 5 minutes at the end of the class. But what the children did see was their story was emerging. And as they were adding their creativity to it, and we got, he is a small, tiny yellow chick. Had gone from a small, he is a chick, a small, tiny yellow chick. And then that was sent to them and they could read it out to their parents. Of course, it was a collaborative thing, but it was the beginning of creative writing. And the children were really pleased with themselves. And that is using a digital platform. Now, I'm going to ask you to join in again and see how this works with a little bit older children, okay? We have 3 photos. Now, where do you think this could be? Look at the photos. Okay.
Our road moves to the dark forest.
Yeah.
A traveler.
Woods.
Woods.
Woods. Yeah. What do you think it is?
A castle in a forest.
Haunted place.
Yeah. Now,
haunted place. Yes.
Now just listen to this. What do you think now? Is it a happy place? What does your emotion tell you with that music?
It's a haunted music.
Haunted.
Okay.
Scary.
Scary. Let's listen to this.
Water moving.
Water.
Whoa.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, it could be Harry Potter. It could be like a Harry Potter. So what I have done is I've used, again, some images.
So it's a map. It's a given map, and the traveler is finding some treasure in the box. Some wooden box is there, chested.
Yeah. So can you see how you said Harry Potter? You've used an idea of a story. You have borrowed the idea of a story to start creating your own story. And I've given you some visual cues. I gave you some sounds. These are free MP3 downloads from Google. And I've given you inspiration. I've given you 3 photos. I've given you 3 things that I want you to put in the story. Now, I might put the words underneath. Normally I would have a lexicon here of some words they could use, but could you see how immediately you found the story that you could perhaps, and how that all comes together? And having this works well with slightly older children when they've got a bit more skill, but it's another way. And I've also got the audio in. So we're using a different sense. So very quickly, again, online, taking the pressure off the children, rolling the dice so that if a child says, right, I want the number 1, okay, you've got a 2-headed monster. Rolling the dice, you're set in. If you've got number 5, it's in a dark forest. Can you see this is a simple way to stop arguments about what to do and what not to do? Also, if you're online, I have my jar of colored paper. And each one has a story title in. So if somebody says, I want an orange one, I've taken the orange one out. This is the title. I'm so small and you're so big. Oh, I don't like that one, but you chose the orange one. So there's a little bit of like, you've got to try with what you've got. So that's a good one. That could also work for characters and things. This one, write about it. If you're online, you can do it. They can be asking you, what does it feel like? It's wet. What can you feel? Squidgy. What can you feel? It could be wet pasta. It could be cotton wool. But they are asking you the question, reversing it around. And roll and write is very similar to this one, where they can work in pairs and you roll the dice. They roll it and they have their visual cues and everything. But also, if you're working with children with special needs, let's not forget, we have to step back and look at organization. And this is just a piece of word, like a bit of my spoon. Can you see here, the child has organized in steps what they're going to write about. These are Macaton signs, okay, very easy. Now, out of all of these, I like this one at the bottom. Now, when you get back to class and you may be working with young children, as a group, you may have organized the sequence of your story. You may have it on Velcro or used in blue tack. And the worst thing is when you have everything organized and they will start falling off. You have your line, your storyboard, and disrupts the class immediately. Look at this. It's in a little plastic pencil case. So nothing will fall out and everything is kept clean and tidy, and it can be passed around and children can start to do their organization of their story or oral storytelling. So that might be a help for you. And very quickly, I can send you, if any of you want all of these, I'll send them and they can be sent on to you. It's just, I'm going to just show you this very quickly before we finish about doing story cubes. You can download Story Cube templates. Now, parents can't do that. I appreciate that. It might be a bit difficult, but if you go back to class, the one tip I would say about doing these is color them before you put them together. Okay, because once you've put them together, you can't color them in. It's very difficult. These are from Sparklebox, very easy to use, and also they help children organize the thought process. And before I finish, I wanted to show you Rory Story Cubes. Some of you may have seen these. They're a great resource that you can buy for organizing story. They're cubes. You really have to look at what they all mean. However, look at this. I found an online version. Now, this is the web link. It's called scratch.mit.edu. But look, these are the story cubes online. And all you have to do is press the button. There you go. I think it's going to go in a minute there. And it moves them all around. So I'm going to stop. So we have lightning, we have we're looking, we have the moon, we have a torch and a fire, we have a direction. Oh, we have a spaceship, we have somebody listening, and something's not working. So it's a great way for children to use the story cubes. These are for slightly older children, and you can do it online with, if you don't want to buy packs. There are packs, but at the moment, you know, postage can be expensive, and this is an online one for the cubes. So, you know, as children grow, I could go on all afternoon, but I appreciate some of you have probably got homes and dinners and everything to go. There are different styles, there are different levels, there's different ways that we can get children to go. And I'm going to end with this video because it is one of the best examples I have seen of pair, share, collaborative writing. And this will be the final thing that I share with you today. But I hope you can see how you can use this. It's wonderful. Here we go.
Today we're going to learn how to write a cooperative story. That means it's not just you and your brain giving ideas. It's two people with two brains putting the ideas together. And sometimes when you write a story like this, it can get kind of silly. And that's okay, because when you have a story that's kind of silly, it usually means it's kind of fun, and it means that you want to write even more. So what you need to do this cooperative story is you'll need a partner, you need a dice, and you'll need one color marker for each student. So what we need to do first is take the dice and roll it. So I'm going to ask Nicole to do that. A 3. Okay, so this cooperative story is going to be me writing the blue words and you guys writing the red words. Okay, so I have 3 words that I can write. So I'm going to write once upon. Now I want to go, but why can't I write anymore? Yeah, I'm only allowed 3 words, so I have to stop there. So we're going to roll again, and now I'm going to take the red marker, and we're going to give me words for the next one. Okay, Nicole? 6. Okay, who would like to add 6 words to this sentence? Sanine.
Time. There.
Now, which there?
T-H-E-R-E.
T-H-E-R-E. Okay, one more.
With.
Oh, you got to stop there. Go with. Okay, you have to be very clear that you have to finish off the next person's thoughts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have to stop there. One of the things that this helps us do is it helps us remind us that good writers reread their work. So let's read it together.
Once upon a time, there was a girl with.
Okay, so now I'm going to do my ones. Got a 1. Okay. You can read this word for me. Really? Okay, so now you guys are going to have to give us the next one. The interesting thing about whenever you write a story and you finish it, you didn't know that you were going to get that story on the blank page. And that's the kind of cool thing about when you do a cooperative story, because you have 2 brains and 2 imaginations writing your story together. Now it's time for us to write stories with our partners. And I'm going to start off by putting you and partners together. So if you guys can work together.
Okay. Now, wasn't that a great idea? And it's a great idea because you can see how that could probably work in a reduced amount and also a bigger amount, but also how she was checking their understanding of homophones. They probably had done that in class about there and there. But I like the idea that then they go off and work together with the dice. How many words can you give and how many words can you give? And it takes the pressure off. And I saw in the chat that somebody said, how many lines do we have children to do? What I have noticed is that when we present a whole page to children, they immediately get, oh, I can't do that. I can't do it. But if we give them maybe 5 lines with a green dot and maybe on the 3rd line have a red dot, they immediately think, I could do that. And you can keep changing the dots. If you think that the children can move on to doing 5 lines, you can move the dots. But when children get a whole page of white lines, they immediately think, I can't do anything else. Can you get the recordings? I think we have to ask Shweta about that. And what I will do is I'll send you the resources that I mentioned in here. I have the videos, I have the PowerPoint, I have the dice that you can make up, if that's okay with you. And also, I'm hoping that you have seen how we can take creativity in another way. But our simplest way of trying to do this as teachers using English as a second language is often using a story. And you exhibited that perfectly with the ideas that you came up with, and also about that little girl, the stories we mixed together. And then children get adventurous and they start to invent their own things. So I hope in one way it's made you look at creativity in a completely different way, but also how layering and rebuilding a story can help your child get the foundations in and scaffold creative writing. So maybe a bit further on, we can look at primary children and getting them, when they've got the writing skills in place, how we can develop it even more. It's tough when children can't write. How can we get them to get writing? We get them visualizing it. We get them thinking about it. And then when everything is in place, boom, off they go. So I hope that was helpful for you today.
Yes, definitely. It was a wonderful opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this is surely be going to encourage us in our future events. I would like to ask Sakshi to please give a vote of thanks on behalf of Creative Minds Academy.
Sure, ma'am. Good evening, everyone present here for this wonderful session. I extend my gratitude to our guest, who took out time from her busy schedule for this session. The session was really very enlightening, very knowledgeable, and very resourceful. And it was rightly said by ma'am that everyone is born with some or the other creativity. We just need to help them to take out that creativity. And I would definitely start doing it from tomorrow only. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to Shweta ma'am for organizing such wonderful session. Thank you, ma'am, and hoping for more sessions.
Yeah, I mean, I never forget how busy you all are. Nobody becomes a teacher for the money. We become teachers for the love, our vocation. And if there's a simpler way, not necessarily a simpler way, if there's a way we can get the process activated quicker, that's what we need to look at. And I just hope that even if you can take one idea and use it in your sessions, you will develop it. My ideas are just a platform for you to go off and create and do something more. So it would be lovely. And I'll send everything straight after this session and in a zipped folder, and you're very welcome to use it how you wish. So I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you is a small world. Really, thank you. Thank you for the messages. It's very positive. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone to attend this workshop, and looking forward for more of such wonderful sessions with Yavan. Thank you so much.
Okay, I love you all too. I can't wait to come over. I'm hoping to come over next year. So we'll have to plan something. That'd be lovely. These kind of sessions work really well when you are face to face and you're given a story to work on. And what you come away with is amazing. What you come away with, I just orientate it, but ultimately your ideas come forward. So if I make it to India, we're going to have to do a creative writing workshop with all the ladies. Yeah, that would be great.
Desperately waiting for that moment.
Yes, I want to come by and buy some more goodies. I really do. I want to go shopping. Well, have a super evening, and thank you for hosting me. And someone is asking where we get the folder. I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it to Shweta, and she can.
Definitely. It was.
All right.
Thank you, Ma.
Yeah, thank you.
What from Yvonne, and I hope to see you all soon.
See you a lot.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye bye.